Sure. Item 5, the last item before nays.
Okay.
Regarding the 1,000-foot setback, shouldn't that read from whatever, like the already determined sensitive sites? Because it's not just daycares, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep, good. We'll change that to sensitive sites.
Or however it's worded.
Yeah, whatever the wording is in there.
Maria, this is Catherine. Sorry. For the
Hey,
minutes,
Catherine.
hey there. Was that Catherine Vanderwall speaking earlier?
It was.
All right. And just to clarify her comment there, what was that one?
So where it says that the motion to maintain the 1,000-foot setback, it
Yes.
says from daycares, but it should be that more comprehensive list. I think we call them the sensitive receptors or something like that.
Yes. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Cool. If we could reword it to do that, that mirrors the ordinance, so that would be great. Okay, so hold on one minute.
Maria, one other thing on the iPad there in conference room B, you should be able to turn on the camera for conference room B.
iPad, well, the camera's not looking at us though, so I don't know what all I'd have to do. It's not on, so we'll just skip it. Thank
Okay.
you. Okay, so Bart, you already had your hand up, so you might want to take that down. And it looks like we're done with public input. I'll go ahead and accept a motion for the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve them with the changes.
That was Jan Coppinger. That's a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I'll second it.
Lisa Beta.
Cool. So we have a motion by Jan Coppinger, seconds by Jennifer Smith and Willie Cepeda. Let's see. Andrew, would you go ahead and take a roll call vote, please, so that we're clear?
Sure. William Weiss,
Absent.
Jan Coppinger,
Yes.
Catherine Vanderwall,
Yes.
Rebecca Harper, absent, I believe. Jennifer Smith,
Here. Yes.
Ardell Baca,
Yes.
Robert Geary,
Yes.
and Chief Cepeda.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, so I think Andrew has that same PowerPoint that we started looking at before we tabled the definitions the last time. Andrew, yeah, thank you. So we'll just see if anybody has questions on the pages where everything's all in black, because that means it's the same. And then we'll quickly get to the definitions that have red ink, which is where we have changes. And so if we have any discussion on that one, we'll sort of pause there for a moment for that discussion. Andrew, just to confirm, this is an information-only item, correct? We're not seeking any action from the task force?
At this point, it's open for discussion. There's no motion set or consideration set. I would like to, I'm not necessarily wanting to walk through each of these and read the definitions, although it seems bigger than it actually is. There's only about 8 pages in the DCC regulations of definitions. But we could touch upon each one. I can just list out the word. If there's any questions or any clarification or any discussion, request it from the task force members. But that's kind of why I believe staff sent out ahead of time the list of all the definitions for their review, so we could maybe, speed up this process and not make it such a dry, lengthy meeting. So
Super. So how about if we just pause at each page, and if task force members have any questions, they can either yell them out in the conference room or raise your hand in the Zoom room, and we'll work through it like that.
okay, with that said, task force members on the first page, are there any definitions that you would like to open up for discussion?
Nothing in the conference room. I don't see any hands raised.
Okay. Moving on to the next page, which pretty much focuses on batch. Any questions or concerns?
Nope. Keep going.
Nope. Okay, here we have a couple of definitions: cannabis accessories and cannabis concentrate, with an amendment to the definition of cannabis concentrate highlighted in red. Any questions or concerns?
I do not see any.
Okay. Moving.
Oh, and Holly, you might want to go ahead and mute yourself in case somebody comes into your side. I see that you're not muted yet. Thanks. Okay, next one, please.
Okay. Next, we move on to cannabis goods and cannabis product. Any questions or concerns with these definitions?
I don't see any.
Okay. Next, we have cannabis product quality, quality cannabis product or quality, as well as cannabis waste and canopy.
Nope.
Okay. Following this, we have CBD, commercial cannabis activity, commercial grade non-residential door lock, and cultivation. Any questions or concerns?
See none. Nope.
Okay. Moving on, we have cultivation site, delivery employee, and designated responsibility party. And I would like to clarify the red on here is not an amendment. It's a note that I put in there because our ordinance currently refers to the equivalent of a cultivation site we reference as cultivation area. Any questions?
Doesn't ours have a cultivation site and cultivation area definition?
We might have a definition for the site and cultivation area in that definition sections. I can check on that while. Let me bring up Article 68 real quick. In the meantime, any questions or concerns for the other definitions? And if not, I will go ahead and move on while I pull up our definitions.
I have a question. I received a document that was 400 pages long. Is what you're talking about right now part of that 400 pages?
I believe it would be pages 1 through 7 or 1 through 8 of that, the first section, chapter 1.
1 through 8 of the 400 pages.
Just the definitions, yes.
At 3 o'clock on Friday.
At 3 o'clock on Friday to make the 72 hours, yes. I believe so. I did not send it out myself, so.
I wonder how many people have been able to review 400 pages.
Well, the idea was to review the definitions.
Bart, why don't you go ahead and mute yourself, please? We're not in public input.
Okay, I'm going to pull up our definitions in Article 68. Let's see. Sorry, I put cannabis. Cannabis cultivation area, which is what we generally refer to. The area of cannabis cultivation site in square feet. Let's see what else. Cannabis cultivation site. So you're correct. We do have a definition for each. A location where cannabis is planted, grown, harvested, dried, cured, graded, packaged, stored, or trimmed, or that does all or any combination of those activities. And actually through other regulations and restrictions in our ordinance, it's very rarely that you would see all of those activities at once. So I hope that clarifies any confusion.
So I think we touched on it last meeting.
This is Jennifer.
Jennifer Smith. It seems that since we've changed the way we calculate taxes, as well as the way, which isn't permanent, but we've eliminated that area cap that we used to have. So is there still a necessity to have that area definition? Or can we just go with site?
Since that ordinance was temporary, I would recommend keeping everything until they make a final decision on going forward. I think that Supervisor Green does plan to take that to the Board of Supervisors sometime soon. Mm-hmm. But that's a good point. We'll have to keep that in mind as we move forward.
Yeah, because the area was only used for that cap.
Yep.
So, okay.
Go ahead, Andrew. I am making a note of that though, so I'll try to remember, but you'll remember. Yeah, we'll figure that out once they talk about it again. Well, no doubt,
Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, just in an effort to streamline things.
Sure. Okay, go ahead, Andrew.
Sorry, I was muted. I was talking. It could be worthwhile to, visit that, have a broader discussion on that planned, because the water boards for all of these projects require a site management plan with their own lists of site management plan requirements, very comparable to our property management plan. However, not exactly aligned or mirrored. So it's something that could be opened up for a broader discussion that is closely related to those definitions. Anyway, next we have distribution, dried flower, edible cannabis product, and extraction. And if you notice, this is alphabetical order, so we've made it to the E's at this point.
I do not see any hands raised. Does anybody here have questions? Nope. Keep going, Andrew.
Okay. Here we have final form, flowering, and free cannabis goods with an amendment to final form. No questions?
One real quick, Andrew.
Sure.
So
Yes.
We had talked about the adoption of the state, definitions.
Mhm.
Do you have a group of those that are kind of specific to Lake County that were in the, or is that what the red represents?
So these are all the state definitions. The state recently amended their whole set of regulations, including part of their definitions. So here we have the January 1st, 2023 definition for final form, which refers to cannabis and cannabis products that are in the form in which the cannabis or cannabis product will be consumed or used. And to reflect the change, the definition of final form was amended to clarify that it refers to cannabis and cannabis products that are in the form in which they will be used in which they will be consumed or used. So that's kind of a summary that the state provided for the change in the definition. If you would like for me to pull up the old definition for a comparison, there's actually a great document for that.
I don't need to bring it up. I was just wondering at the point where we get ready to close this, we had talked, there may be some specific terminology used just for Lake County, and that would be potentially added. I was just sort of curious if this was part of this layout that you have, if it addresses any of our local ones that have different definitions other than area and site.
At this point, I don't have a comprehensive list of how all the changes compare with our definitions. We can continue that and, bring that to the next meeting for further discussion.
That'd be great. That's cool. That's all I need.
Okay, we can put together a summary of
Do we have any
this.
specific terms that are unique to Lake County? Because in general, we've tried to just mirror the state's definitions.
True. That's my understanding. However, the DCC is a new department formed with a combination of the BCC, the Bureau for Cannabis Control, with a few other state departments. So they've gone through their own shuffle of definitions, and it wouldn't hurt to maybe just do a check and bring that to the table to really clarify any changes. Nara, it looks like Nara has her hand up for a comment.
I do, yeah. So I just wanted to make sure that when we are creating this ordinance, that we're going to be pointing to the section of definitions rather than taking these definitions from the state, because it is, as you just said, sort of a constantly evolving thing where the state is changing the definitions. So rather than having to go back and continually amend the county cannabis ordinance to reflect any changes in the state definitions, we are just planning to point to this code section of the state regulations. Is that right?
That sounds better than adding 435 pages to our ordinance.
Well, it's eight pages of definitions, not 430. But we can refer for all of our definitions.
Ours was like
And
11 pages and
specifically-
got up to 22 pages now, and that's if you used the other form. And so I think, this is a perfect example of why I suggested this exercise, is because it is constantly changing at the state, and then we don't have to make changes.
Okay, so Andrew, make note on our next agenda, that would come out as a recommendation, but I don't want to do it at this one because we're not going to be done with definitions today. But Andrew, let's make sure that we capture that as a potential action from the task force, that our ordinance be updated to just refer to state definitions, like a section of the code, instead of always having to have an identical listing both here and there. We'll just refer to it there so that ours will change as the state changes.
Correct. And generally that does stay, the definitions section does stay the same, although I do think there was they did a 0.1 or a 0.0 at some point in the last changeover of regs. So that would but that would be the only thing that would need to be, updated as they update. I do know that what brought this up was the free cannabis goods. I know that this year, very likely in the state budget bill, there's going to be some new language around that.
Cool. Okay.
Okay, note taken. And then I believe Catherine should have that in the minutes as well. So,
Super.
all right, next slide. We have immature plant or immature. Any questions or concerns with this? I'm not hearing anything, so I'm going to move on.
What's a tissue container?
It's if you've got tissue culture, which is basically
This is Jennifer.
like a petri dish of the genetic material that can then be propagated into plants.
Oh, okay. Cool. Thank you. I was the only one that apparently had a question. Keep going, Andrew. Good job.
No problem. There is a note on immature plant propagation area that can be located within the cultivation area or cultivation site and is not necessarily considered canopy at the state, but that's kind of a broader discussion for a later meeting. So anyway, next slide. We have indoor cultivation, informational panel, infusion, and infused pre-roll. Any questions or concerns?
Nothing online and nothing in the conference room.
Ingredient, keef, labeling, licensee, and light deprivation.
Nope. Keep going.
Okay. I'll leave that silent minute until you wrap it up. So
Super.
Limited access area, lot number, or batch number.
Nope. Next slide.
Manufacture. I think this is a 2-part definition. Maybe 3 parts, actually.
Next slide.
Okay. Manufacturing operation, mature plant, mature, and medicinal cannabis patient.
Nope. Looks good. Keep going.
Okay. Mixed light cultivation. Now, this amendment, definition of mixed light cultivation, amended to remove light deprivation as an activity limited to mixed light cultivation, which is essentially what opened up the temporary hoops for outdoor, which we spent a lot of time on. So, any questions?
I
Nope.
don't see any questions. Bart, would you mute yourself, please? Thank you. Keep going, Andrew.
All right, well, that's the first half of the definitions, and that's where I'd left off last time. We could bring up the PDF document if you want to just kind of quickly get through the rest of these. Ray, I'm going to lean on your direction here.
What do you mean with the rest of these?
Well, the
Sorry.
PowerPoint, the original PowerPoint that I'd used only went through the first half of definitions. There's a second half that has not been incorporated into PowerPoint slides. However, we have it in PDF form and it was sent out on Friday. So we can just pick up at mixed light and keep moving on. It does get a
That
little.
sounds fine. Yeah, why don't you pull up that document? We'll just keep going.
Okay. Mature mixed light cultivation. It's a little harder to read. Their formatting isn't great, but that's just my opinion.
If you could just highlight the ones that need our attention, that'd be great.
Okay. We left off on, let's see if I can bring up the
And I
highlighter.
think that Bart's not able to mute herself. Can you do that on your end? We'll open up for public input at the end. Thank you.
I've sent a request to ask to mute. I guess anyone
Sounds good.
else?
Keep going.
Okay. Thanks. I sent it to all the phone numbers. I don't
Okay.
remember exactly which phone numbers. So here we go on to non-manufactured cannabis products, non-volatile solvents.
We are still seeing your slides.
Okay, let me 1 second. All right, is this
There you go. That's good.
better? Okay. So I'll just do 3 or 4 at a time, and we can then see if anybody wants to open them up for discussion. Non-manufactured cannabis products, non-volatile solvent, nursery, and orally consumed concentrate.
I don't see anything here. Keep going.
Okay. We then have outdoor cultivation, package or packaging, person, and then pest. Again, I apologize for the not the most exciting discussion.
It looks like outdoor cultivation mirrors the update then, correct? That you can do it in a hoop house just so long as you don't have any artificial light.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay,
This
I
is
just wanted to
the
make note of that because
updated definition.
That's a significant change.
Yeah, they're both reflect from mixed light and outdoor cultivation. Those definition changes
Good.
are what open that up. So, but again, the key point is without use of artificial lighting. So, which makes the mixed light license still relevant.
So this
Okay.
may be off topic and should be tabled for a future discussion, but I have not heard how that will be compatible with a farmland protection zone, which requires cultivation in a greenhouse. So at some point, I think that I'd like to get that on our agenda for the task force to talk about it, because it's a change at the state level that we will need to figure out how to deal with in certain areas at the local level. So,
Yes, that is correct. And we should probably address farmland protection zone fairly soon. We
would
could
agree,
even
since-
get it. There's a deadline
yeah.
coming up in May. And I think, given the strict requirements of that ordinance and the state of our applicants that fall within that area, we might, if nothing, maybe bring it up for an extension of that deadline just while we figure everything else out. Just a thought.
So, Andrew, I don't want to mess up with the order that you have set up going forward for the task force, but it would be good if we could get some of these high priority issues dealt with first.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, after all the one-offs that the board's been sending, I hate to create my own, but some of these they have big.
It could be a 10 or 15 minute one-off.
Repercussions, yeah, there are implications. So if we can get those things done early enough that our cannabis permittees who are working on planning for the year, the earlier we get to that stuff and get it smoothed out, the better.
Okay, absolutely.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Jennifer?
And then, the process, if any process whatsoever, is going to be required by the county for adding hoops to an outdoor license.
Okay, so how about if we do this? It seems to have been working out very efficiently when LCCA gets together and tells us where we think we need to consider things that are a priority in the industry. If you can have that ready for next meeting, we will have that on the agenda.
Okay.
Because we'll finish up definitions probably this week, but we won't take action until next week, but that'll be fast. And then we can move on to that one.
Okay.
Okay, because, and the reason why I'd like to do it in that order is because if we need if we need to break off and go give an update to the planning commission and the board for things that are time sensitive, we can do that. But it's important that the task force can do its due diligence first. Okay, thank you, Andrew. I'm done interrupting. Keep going.
Oh, no problem at all. Moving on, we have premises, primary panel, and processing.
Nothing here. Or in Zoom. Keep going.
Almost through this. We have product identity, identity of product, and then promotional materials, and then publicly owned land, quarantine, and residential area.
Looks good. Keep going.
Okay. Next, we have retail area, serving, sublet, tablet, tamper evident, and terpenes.
Looks good. Keep going.
Okay. And have THC or Delta 9 THC, tincture, topical cannabis product, track and trace system, transport, and unique identifier or UID.
Next slide, please.
Okay.
Or, sorry, next list.
Next set, I guess. Universal symbol. Oh, Nora has her hand raised. Go ahead, Nora.
Just a really quick thing. I thought the UID might be an interesting thing to for those who are not cannabis people to understand a little bit, just based on sort of how the track and trace system works. And I wonder.
Do you want to go ahead and explain that?
Sure. So each cannabis product is going to receive a universal identification number. And that scans back into the state track and trace program, which is the seed to sale program. So from the moment of a plant is either cloned or a tissue culture is taken, or a seed is planted in the ground, or a seed is logged into the track and trace system, it receives a UID. And from that moment, that UID stays with that plant or seed or future plant all the way through the process. So even if that product is grown, sold as biomass, put through six different manufacturing processes to extract, concentrate, or winterize, and then put into an edible product, you can always trace that back via the UID. And at each point in the system, it'll get another code, but you're able to trace that all the way back to the origin of that plant. And that is that's one of the ways we can check for quality assurance, for any recalls, and also to ensure that that all of the cannabis that is in the state licensed system is legal cannabis product. So it's a really unique function of the cannabis supply chain, and I, if for the
We're losing you, Nora.
We lost you a little bit. But I will agree, it's pretty impressive when you see the state inspectors out. I've been out a few times, and the devices that they have, and they can, rather than go by and scan plant by plant.
You might appreciate
Oh, there you are.
I was pretty much done, I think.
Okay, we lost that last end, but no, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was just letting folks know, that's a. I don't know if you heard the quality assurance side, as well as for making sure that the cannabis that's in the legal market is from the legal market. So it's a diversion issue. It's a recall issue. And it's this pretty cool thing that you can have a Kiva gummy that's been through 3 different manufacturing processes, but we can actually trace it back to the plant that cannabis product came from.
Wow.
Yeah. And the devices they have, they're able to scan multiple areas at a time. So you don't have to go through and scan every plant by plant, or containers once they're kind of packed and they're in a section, a storage area, they can go through and scan and all of the different plants kind of come up. It's a pretty cool application of technology. And luckily the state has to do that. So, okay. Anyway, moving on to the next set of definitions.
Hold on, Andrew. We got a question here.
Just a point of information for everybody. Our farm is actually one of the metric, Jennifer Smith speaking, sorry. Our farm is actually one of the metric test farms. They're rolling out a whole new program that's more environmentally friendly. And so it's pretty cool that Lake County is a part of that.
Wow, that's neat.
So we might be able to go from 5,000 plastic tags to 5 paper tags that are biodegradable.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Huge labor savings.
No kidding. Keep going, Andrew. Thank you.
Okay. Next we have vehicle alarm system, volatile solvent, watts per square foot, wholesale cost. Those for now. Any?
No, we're good.
Okay.
And that.
Okay, that wraps it up.
Woohoo.
So.
Okay, so since we said we weren't going to take action today on those definitions, we'll add that. Catherine, please put that as our first item on, after a roll call and minutes for next meeting. And then I think that the other item will be to consider recommendations regarding an
extension for FPZ?
Actually, let's just
maybe
go
not yet.
through all can we just do the items that have changed at the state level that the cannabis industry recommends that we pay attention to right now as far as ours. So FPPZ is one of them. Another one is updating our outdoor. Well, I think that mirrors the state, so that should probably be fine. But we may want to check that since, let's see if that affects, in addition to definitions, any of our development standards in Article 27. So let's just check all the stuff that has been changed this year and make sure that our ordinance is ready for it. And if not, the task force should consider changes that might be supported by the group.
We have Robert Geary's hand.
Go ahead, Robert. Oh, you just muted yourself, Robert.
Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes.
So just for clarification, as far as for these definitions, so these definitions are specifically for the applicant that's getting into this, or is it for the planners to guide them through the process as far as for this ordinance?
Well, do you mean to ask if it only affects permits going forward, or if it also affects already approved permits? Is that your question?
Yes.
Well, to a certain degree, it would affect all permits. In areas where there would be a conflict, we would have to take a look to see if it's either a legal non-conforming use from that point, or if, let's say, if it hasn't, or if the permittee would want to request some sort of modification to an already issued permit. So we'd probably have to deal with that on a case-by-case basis, but most of these amendments in the definitions, I don't think would really rock anybody's world yet. Except for the areas where we're going to talk about next meeting, like farmland protection zone, things like that.
Okay. No, I was just wondering because I didn't see anything under cultural resources or tribal cultural resources. And I think that's one of the bigger issues that we have, I think, with permitting is either the applicant or sometimes even the planners not knowing what that is.
That would not change because all of the permits will still require some level of discretionary permitting. So we'll still have that RFR, and if it looks like or for the request for review, and if it looks like we're doing an initial study, we will still absolutely do AB 52 outreach as well.
Okay. I guess for me is I'm just trying to find a way to educate more of not just, the applicants, but even, like I said, the planners, even before we get here, of knowing, I think if they see it as part of the document of these definitions, of knowing what those are, then everyone's really on the same page by the time we get to the AB 52. Do you see what I'm saying?
That's a good point. Thank you.
I'm always looking for the ability to do it earlier in the process. So by the time we get to the process, everyone's on the same page.
So that might be something we could look at in the future as far as development standards and requirements for permits.
Okay.
That might be a good spot to add some detail there. So let's keep that in mind.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. We have call in user 2. Go ahead. Looks like you are unmuted on this end, call in user 2. But we can't hear you. Oh, there you go. Now you're muted. Okay. Still can't hear you. Andrew, what's that thing you can do on your phone? Is it *6, #6?
I think so. I've never actually attended a Zoom meeting
Yeah, I
on my
think
phone.
it's star 6.
All right,
Just ask
unmuted
to
again.
unmute, which might give them a.
How about now?
Here we go.
There
Yes.
we go.
Oh, wow. Thank you. This is Angela. My question was, so we're talking about SPZs and outdoor changes. I'm going to ask, when are we going to get into exclusion zone?
Not for a while. But Angela, just as a side note, I've been waiting to hear back from your HOA or from you, I guess, to see if you were ready for that meeting.
Yeah, we're putting that together. But I was wondering on this end, I'm still working on that. I left you a message this morning, actually, a voicemail. So, but I was just wondering when we're going to get into exclusion zone for the ordinance.
Yeah, that's not on our list anytime soon.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing. Looks like we have Jason Schroeder from Central Valley Water Board. Go ahead, Jason.
Hi, thanks for letting us participate today.
We can just barely hear you.
Jason, we're having a little trouble hearing you. Yeah.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Not really. Keep trying.
Not really. How about now?
Nope. Well, a little, but not.
Not well, huh?
Oh, that's better.
Is that better?
Yes.
I just wanted to point out, thank you for having us, by the way.
Oh, we just lost you again.
Let me try this. Can you hear me? Is that better?
A little.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Jason, it's still sounding somewhat muted.
I'll come back to it.
I was going to say, perhaps I can reach out to you and Janae this week to coordinate your comment, and we can add it to the agenda if you're available to come to our next meeting, because I'm sure whatever you have to say, I'm sure everyone would like to hear.
And Angela, if you'd please take your hand down, that'd be great. Thanks.
Okay, well, with that, I'm going to reach out to Jason to get a better idea of any questions or concerns that he wants to bring from our Central Valley Water Board. I know they're gearing up this year for their illegal cannabis.
We just got
efforts.
Jason in the chat, it says important that people understand that indoor cultivations, as far as water board is concerned, must occur within a structure that has a permanent roof and an impermeable floor. Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
let's see. So we're at the end of our definitions. Let's go to the next item, which is public comment. Do we have any public comment in the Zoom? Because we don't have any public here. Holly, go ahead.
Yes, I'm not sure that I totally understood, or I maybe missed what Andrew said at the beginning, but is there going to be a discussion on population-based permit caps?
We already addressed density issues in the last couple meetings. And so that,
Or retail sales.
wait, actually, no, let me backtrack. We were dealing with retail caps. Are you talking about permit caps in general?
No, I was talking about the ones that were listed in the CA recommendations for the retail permits. And they had recommended one storefront retail per every 4,000 or 5,000 residents.
No, I think that was part of the initial discussion, but where we settled I think this was last meeting, it should be in the minutes, we settled on increasing the number of zoning districts that would allow for it, which would also allow for a reduction of the density in the commercial zones districts. But we did not approve the recommendations for the population connected density it did not go through the task force. Well, it was not approved by the task force.
Okay, I don't remember that from the last meeting, but I'm not quite sure how increasing the number of places where you have locations actually decreases the amount.
It lessens it increases the number of potential locations for retail. Right now, there aren't that many since it's only in C1, C2. And so that's why it's impacting our main streets right now. However, if we were to enable some sort of retail location that's incidental to a cultivation site in ag or manufacturers in M1, M2, or C3, then it increases the number of available locations, lessening the impact on the C1 and C2 district of our main streets.
Okay, I didn't quite, I'm not quite sure how that helps because basically then in effect you could have hundreds of dispensaries then?
Hypothetically, but I don't think
It opens up, it might open up hundreds of options for those, but then they're still going to have to go through a minor use permit process. They're going to have to meet commercial standards for 4290 compliance. There is a handful of other, steps of review that they're going to have to go through.
But there's no limit, so they all could go through.
At this point, there's no limit.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to be sure I understood that. Thank you.
Sure thing. Go ahead, Angela.
Thank you. So I'm unable to tap in through Zoom, and I wasn't able to follow along on. You guys are using a PowerPoint. When will the video be available so that I can go back and look at the slides?
We send the videos after each meeting to Sam. Basically, is our, I guess, Maria, you can explain Sam's role as far as media content. There have been some delays. There were some. Well, I'm not even sure what the situation with Sam was. I think he was out of power in the snow, and he does a lot of work from his home office. So he was.
And he's also an extra help employee. He's not a full-time employee.
Yeah, he's kind of contracted by the county. So we do send it to him as soon as we can, and he gets them uploaded as soon as he can. I wish I had a better answer for you.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask so I don't start bugging you guys. I'll give it a couple days. Thank you.
All right, you're not the only one. So
thanks, Angela. Any other public comment? I don't see any hands raised in the Zoom room. So if there's no further comment, we're going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. It's 1:58, Catherine, and the meeting is adjourned.